scientists found the off switch for consciousness. What are you? Seriously. Where does your sense of self, your awareness, your entire conscious experience come from? For thousands of years, this question belonged to philosophers, but now we're getting answers. The greatest mystery in the universe might just be how the 3-pound lump of tissue between your ears generates the rich, seamless movie that is your life. We experience the world as a unified whole, a continuous stream of thoughts, sensations, and emotions. But your brain is a decentralized, chaotic storm of billions of neurons firing. How does it bind all of that chaos together into a single, coherent you? It's what's known as the hard problem of consciousness, and it's stumped scientists for centuries. But what if the solution wasn't as complicated as we thought? What if the essence of your awareness depended on a single, tiny master switch? Deep inside your brain is a structure so crucial that when scientists zapped it with a tiny electrode, the patient's consciousness just switched off. She stopped talking, stared blankly into space, and had zero memory of the event afterward. Then, with the flip of a switch, she was back. This tiny region, the claustrum, might just be the master control for your entire conscious experience. The discovery felt less like a medical procedure and more like something out of science fiction. It forces us to ask an incredible question. If consciousness can be switched off, what does that tell us about what it really is? Section 1. The accidental discovery. This whole thing started by accident. It wasn't some grand quest to solve the mystery of consciousness, but a mission to help one person. Researchers at George Washington University, led by Dr. Mohammed Kubaisi, were trying to treat a 54-year-old woman with severe epilepsy. The plan was to use deep brain stimulation, implanting tiny electrodes to find and control the source of her seizures. Neurosurgeons had been mapping the brain this way for decades, but one particular area was still largely uncharted territory. The team was systematically sending tiny pulses of electricity to different spots deep inside her brain. As they stimulated a thin, sheet-like layer of neurons called the claustrum, something astonishing happened. The patient, who'd been awake and talking, suddenly went silent. She stopped reading, her breathing slowed, and she just stared blankly. She wasn't asleep or in a coma. She was physically awake, but her consciousness had seemingly vanished. The researchers, stunned, stopped the stimulation. Instantly, she snapped back to full awareness, with no memory of what had just happened. From her point of view, no time had passed at all. They repeated the experiment over 2 days, and the result was the same every single time. A high-frequency pulse to the claustrum extinguished her consciousness. Turn it off, and she returned. It's critical to note this was a finding in a single patient and hasn't been definitively replicated across the board. Still, Dr. Kubaisi compared the claustrum to the ignition in a car. You can have a perfect engine, wheels, and transmission, but without turning that key, the parts don't come together to go anywhere. The claustrum, they proposed, might be that key for consciousness. Section 2. The conductor of the orchestra. This shocking discovery gave the first direct human evidence for a theory proposed years earlier by 2 legends. Francis Crick, co-discoverer of DNA's double helix, and neuroscientist Christoph Koch. Back in 2005, they had hypothesized that the claustrum might be the conductor of the orchestra of the brain. Think about your experience right now. You're seeing these words, maybe hearing sounds around you, feeling the temperature of the room, all while having your own thoughts. This all happens in different parts of your brain: sight in the back, sound on the sides, thought in the front. So what merges it all into one unified experience? Crick and Koch believed the claustrum was the perfect candidate. It's a thin, mysterious sheet of gray matter, and what makes it special are its connections. It has been described as having a crown of thorns structure, with tendrils reaching out to nearly every other region of the cortex. It's one of the most densely connected structures in the brain, sending and receiving signals from the areas handling perception, movement, and thought. This led them to believe it acts as an integrator, binding all the separate data streams into a single moment of awareness. Without this conductor, you'd have a noisy, disjointed mess. With it, you have a symphony. More recent research has complicated this picture, suggesting the claustrum is less a single seat of consciousness and more of a high-speed router, coordinating brain networks for complex tasks. Today, the consensus is that consciousness isn't in one spot, but is an emergent property of many networks working together. Section 3. More than one switch, the thalamus enters the scene. The story doesn't end with the claustrum. As it usually goes in science, the plot thickened. While the claustrum may be a coordinator, another region deep in the brain plays a vital role as a gatekeeper: the thalamus. The thalamus is a pair of egg-shaped structures right in the brain's center. For a long time, it was seen as a simple relay station. Nearly all sensory information, sight, sound, touch, passes through the thalamus before being sent to the cortex for processing. But we now know it's much more than a passive relay. The thalamus seems to be a crucial filter, deciding what information gets to reach your conscious awareness. In a landmark study, University of Wisconsin researchers stimulated a specific part of the thalamus, the central lateral thalamus, in anesthetized monkeys. The results were just as stunning as the claustrum experiment. With a specific electrical stimulation, the unconscious monkeys suddenly woke up. They opened their eyes and showed all the normal behaviors and brain activity of a waking animal. The moment the stimulation stopped, they went right back into an unconscious state. This suggests the thalamus acts as an amplifier or a wake-up call for the cortex. It appears essential for just being awake and alert in the first place. The power supply that allows the orchestra of consciousness, perhaps coordinated by the claustrum, to even play. This makes the thalamus a key target for understanding states like anesthesia, which doesn't just shut down the cortex, but disrupts the vital communication between the thalamus and cortex. Section 4. The implications, from coma to consciousness. So, we have a possible coordinator in the claustrum and a gatekeeper in the thalamus. Finding these switches isn't just a cool piece of trivia, it has world-changing implications. First, think about disorders of consciousness. Millions suffer brain injuries that leave them in a coma or a minimally conscious state. For families, the most agonizing part is not knowing if their loved one is still in there. Bedside exams can be tragically unreliable, with studies showing misclassification rates of conscious patients as unconscious as high as 40% of the time. This is where the new science comes in. Using fMRI, researchers can now detect covert consciousness. They can ask a patient to imagine playing tennis, and while the person can't move, the motor centers of their brain light up, just like a healthy person's would. Understanding the roles of the thalamus and claustrum provides a direct target for new therapies. If consciousness can be switched off, can it be switched back on? Researchers are now actively exploring whether deep brain stimulation, DBS, of the central lateral thalamus could jumpstart the brain in patients with consciousness disorders. While still experimental, it could revolutionize treatment for these devastating conditions, offering real hope where there was once only uncertainty. This research also demystifies general anesthesia. For over a century, we've known certain chemicals knock us out, but not precisely how. Now we know many anesthetics work by suppressing activity in these key thalamus cortex circuits, essentially cutting the communication lines that sustain our conscious experience. And finally, this journey into the brain forces us to face the biggest questions of all. What does it mean to be human? If your awareness can be toggled on and off like a light switch, where does your self go? Is it just a beautiful illusion generated by these biological circuits? These are no longer just philosophical debates. They are questions neuroscience is finally beginning to answer. As we continue to map this incredible inner world, we get closer to understanding the very nature of our own existence. What do you think consciousness is? Let me know in the comments. The exploration of the brain is truly the final frontier, and finding these consciousness switches is like discovering a key to the control room. We're moving from simply observing the mystery to actively understanding its mechanics. The idea of a single off switch is an oversimplification. Consciousness is an incredibly complex network property, but by identifying critical hubs like the claustrum and thalamus, science has given us a real foothold. It's a profound reminder that the self you experience every moment is a fragile and extraordinary construction of our biology. A symphony conducted by ancient structures hidden deep within our minds. And we are only just beginning to learn its song.